So last Friday, Path of Exile 2 started early access, and I've played a little bit of it over the past couple of days as I've gotten time. I'm not deep into the end game or anything. I've tried out a couple of different classes, and I'm still in the campaign. So I'm not going to really comment on like the end game or give like a really in-depth review of it or anything because I'm still pretty new to the game. So if you're not familiar with Path of Exile, it started about 10 years ago. It's made by Grinding Gear Games, and it's heavily inspired by Diablo 2. So it's a ARPG, and it has like really and this is one, right? It has very in-depth character creation. It's got an extensive skill tree. It has a lot of customization. Gear itemization is a big part of it. It's a one of those kinds of games. So um I tried it out a little, but there was a few things about it that was a little off-putting, coming into the game 10 years late. Um, well, I guess about 8 years late. Um, so there's a lot of knowledge base required to get into one. Understanding what stats like do and how they interact with each other is a big part of building uh, big part of builds and just getting through the game. You can be struggling on a normal mob, or you can be blasting an entire screen without even like really pushing many buttons. And it was a lot of fun for people who knew a lot about it, and it was kind of intimidating for anybody coming in to the game new. So with two, it's mostly starting over. It's got a lot of the same DNA, but it's a different game from one, and, I'm having a really great time, but I am not deep enough into the game to be experiencing the problems that others who are there at this point might be. But just my initial impressions, there's so much love and care and, like, passion put into this game. The sound is amazing, the environments look great. The campaign story, is pretty good. I have a pretty high ceiling of story that I've enjoyed in games, and I have a really, really low bar to clear. So, it's serviceable. Right now, uh, the first 3 acts are in the game, and you replay them, and, it's intended that by the time the game goes into full release, it's still in early access, that there will be 6 acts, and the story will be more fleshed out, obviously, since there's only half of it. They're focusing on other aspects of the game first, and the campaign will be finished later. Excuse me. So, I really like it so far, but it's not like I don't know. It's really hard to say if it's worth playing for the campaign, but if you enjoyed Diablo 4's campaign, then it's definitely worth trying, because it's on par with that. There was a little bit more of a slog, in different parts of 4, but 4 had more higher peaks, but I would say that they're pretty comparable. So one way that this really differs from a typical ARPG, the isometric click to move kinds of games, is it has an option for WSD movement, and it also works really well on a controller. And new to ARPGs in general, I'm not sure, but I don't think many of them, or any of them have included a dodge roll. So if you are a fan of more like Souls-like combat, or like for me, I was used to active dodge in Guild Wars 2 and uh, Secret World and like Age of Conan. I've played a couple of MMOs where dodging was part of everybody's um combat even like casters. So it wasn't a big jump in difficulty for me because it's something that I kind of um I can I I I enjoy having more tools at my disposal to solve problems. So having a dodge roll as an option is a cool idea for me, but also I'm gonna assume now I'll get into the current state of the loot in a second, but I'm going to assume um, if you wanted to spec for a shield or resistances, or if you wanted to, put some points into defense or survivability with like a really meaty health pool or good uh, health regeneration, or maybe like some leech that you could probably get around needing to have as active of a combat role with the dodge. But for right now, there are 50 bosses in the game, and some of them are hard, and some of them are hard really early on. There are people who are struggling with like the chapter one boss. I mean, myself included. On my first character, it took a couple of attempts, and I'm the sort of person that treats bosses as a gear check, not a skill check. So, like with my second character, I went in and attempted it once, and then I just went back, refarmed some more gear, upgraded her spell gems, and then went back and one shot at him because um, I just, again, I like to solve challenges in different ways, but with my first playthrough on my first character, a witch, I'm, I mean, in fairness, I have minions on her, but I'm trying to actually see the boss's mechanics. Whereas with subsequent playthroughs, I'm probably going to have a little bit more of an overpowered um build to just be one and done with the fights, and that is an option, but it's not an option at first. So depending on the class you choose, it can be like a really hard and imposing experience right now, especially if you're on a super gear dependent class, like a warrior or a monk or something, where if you don't have, I don't know if monks use melee weapons, so maybe that was a bad example, but um, if you're on a very gear dependent class right now, and they have patched to improve this, again, early access, a lot's going to change. There's a there's just not enough loot in the world to uh, to have the build you want at all. But I mean, honestly, like to have just like just something at first, it takes time. I was trying originally to just play through the story, and then I was like, you know, I'm I'm like getting to chapter two without a belt or an amulet whatsoever, and just the slots are empty. And I'm like, this can't be right. So I went back and like full map cleared until I was able to break down some gear and craft like some items just to have something in the slots. But I still, it can be a little frustrating, for me at least, to know what I'm looking for and not have the option to try to go for it. Like, you know, there's uh, crafting is a big aspect of fleshing out your build. So you're not just going, if you fight a boss, you're not just going to get a perfect item drop off the boss. There's a, if you've played ARPGs like Diablo or anything like it, there's like a kind of the randomly drawn stats, and you're at the mercy of RNG. Like, should an item even drop to begin with, if it's going to be the stats you're going for, and then of course understanding stat itemization and what to prioritize isn't very intuitive for a new player. So there was a lot of slowing down and reading tooltips to try to get into it, which it was fine for me. I'm in no rush. Like if the previous holds up, Path of Exile 1 was supported for 10 years. And again, it's a free game. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but like Path of Exile 1 is free. You can go download it right now and try it, and it's got 10 years worth of content in it. And the microtransactions exist, but they're very fair. It's a couple of cosmetics and some storage. And if you buy the storage in one, it carries over to two. So you can play either version for the same price. Um, right now, they are charging for early access to two, but it's on Steam. You can wishlist it, and once it is in full release, it will be free, just like one. So if you're not sure that you want the early access experience where stuff can change, like there's been 3 patches so far, and it's been like a week. Um, then it's definitely a game to keep your eye on, like for later, but you'll want to just wishlist it and wait instead of experiencing a mixed bag. Like but honestly, it's worth it in its current state. There's games that were released that had less polish in areas than this one does, but the balancing is and how the economy works and everything is going to be a work in progress with the live testing. And they've got a very large pool of people who are testing it. I think I saw on Steam database that like 500,000 people have tried it already, and that's a larger number than ever played PoE 1. So it's probably a lot more feedback for them to parse than they're used to, but that can be helpful because there was a very, very small um, um, audience in one that was very vocal. And grading your games is they are very receptive to feedback and have listened to the community, but um there are people of the community that have different play styles, and they can't um they can't make a game for everybody. But I do appreciate that they have 2 standalone games where they had divergent ideas between 1 and 2, and, if there are people that prefer the way things work in 1 is still available and supported for them to play a game like it, and 2 is a different experience, and for people that are enjoying both, they get both now, and that's really great. Um, but, personally, I wholly, um, can recommend the game. I think it's great. Again, the music, the environments look wonderful. There's such a diversity in mob types. All of the bosses that I've encountered so far are really interesting design wise. They have good mechanics. I don't have the feeling that I've gotten in a lot of like dungeon crawlers where I don't feel like I'm in the same dungeon over and over again. I don't feel like I'm fighting the same monsters over and over again. Even though I've had to backtrack and go back through areas, they still feel really distinct from each other, and that in itself is huge. Um, but you know, I won't speak much on the current state of it because that can and has already changed. Like my initial first couple of hours in the game, I just I wasn't getting any loot and everything was hard. And even on a character with like minions, I had like, other things supporting me. I was still struggling until I was able to get some gear, get some ability gems and everything. And then, a couple of lucky finds on a vendor, a couple of lucky attempts at crafting, and suddenly I had a more powerful character and that felt better. Um, but it still took time to get there. So, I don't know what the day one experience will be for the full release of the game, but I completely guarantee and have faith in Grinding Gear that it's going to be a great experience once it's ready. And for anybody wanting to just dive into it sooner and understanding that it's a work in progress as far as balancing, there's still a lot of fun there. There's half the story already. There's a lot of areas to explore and mobs to see. and bosses to fight. And if you're a person that enjoys the I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm getting over being sick. If you're a person who enjoys the active combat where you're dodging and stuff, especially if you're going through under geared, you're going to get a lot of that. But it feels really good. If you do like that, it's responsive. There was a point where you were kind of getting stuck by mobs, and that was an intended uh, thing that Grinding Gear games did, but it was happening more often than was intended. So they've already made an attempt to make that have less friction with that by reducing the character size, and uh, they did that they worked over the weekend to get the patch ready for the next working day. So I mean, it was only like that for 2 days, and that sort of turnover is really inspiring, considering just how much feedback they must have to parse through, with just the sheer volume of people playing the game right now. It must be exciting for them, but I can't imagine how difficult it is to hear conflicting things from people. They've been hard at work at this game for a long time, and a lot of the things that work in theory don't always hold up to practice when you have a lot of things you couldn't have possibly considered being thrown at it. But they are, you know, uh, Path of Exile 1 had a very difficult respec cost, Orb of Regret. You couldn't play around with builds, which was a shame because it has a very, very extensive skill tree and you want to experiment. And 2 is more approachable. You would just pay gold to respec, but it can get very expensive the more talents um, you have set. So there are a lot of people who have higher level characters that have been nerfed recently, and they feel like their character's kind of bricked because they had put so much into a build that isn't viable in the same way anymore. And I can understand their frustration, but I also I understand the nature of early access and test builds that things can be in the game and change at any moment, and that's okay. That's kind of the fun of it. But yeah, as far as recommending it now, as long as you understand that it is a live test environment and that things can change, and if that's a frustration for you, I fully recommend like holding off until initial till the actual release. But on that day, especially because it's a free game, like I can't recommend it enough. And I may talk more about the game as I get a little deeper into it, but for right now, I'm just enjoying going through at my own pace, exploring the maps, looking for treasure chests, and just having a good time with it. A couple of tips if you are going to try it out. Like crafting isn't super intuitive. Check your vendors every single time you level. Their inventory refreshes, and you might end up seeing like a good item just hidden in a vendor. Uh, a lot of the drops are going to be currency to craft. You can disenchant items you're not using at a vendor in town. She's the bard in the first area. Um, at some point in the story, there is a NPC that will identify magic items for you, so you won't have to use the magic identification scrolls forever. So don't worry if that is costly at first. It's not for very long. There's a hmm, I that's really like the things I wish I'd known right away. I don't want to spoil too much, but I do wish the crafting was a little more tutorialized because I made some costly mistakes at first that I wish I hadn't, but it didn't take very long at all for me to go back and farm the materials that I wasted back. So, again, they're still playing around with the drop rates. So, hopefully, there'll be a little bit more of an abundance of crafting materials so you can be free to experiment more freely and I hope that they'll reduce the gold cost of respecing so you can experiment more with the build tree because it's one of the most extensive ones I've seen. I think maybe there was like a Final Fantasy game that had a more like a bigger one, but this one is very well thought out and it still is pruned down from one, but it's still very extensive. Like uh you can you can cross class should you want to. You know, you can start out as like an archer and go into a minion build or into you know, mage spells or you know, do something really stupid but fun. And at least right now, it seems like Grinding Gear Games is trying not to have a correct choice, which there really was in one. Like there was the point where you felt like I'm playing a suboptimal build. I could be having a considerably better experience. You know, my choices that I want to make for fun are incorrect. And I think they're trying really hard not for you not to get that feeling into, for you to have more freedom to play a character it's a little more interesting and I I really enjoy that personally because I really like just trying something out and seeing what it does and trying different things that are suboptimal but could end up being really interesting or fun. And as long as there's like a lower barrier of entry to experimenting like that, then that's going to really appeal to people like me that are enjoying the game. But that remains to be seen. For right now, I'm really optimistic about the direction that the game is going, and maybe that optimism will be crushed a little as I get further along into the difficulty. But you know, for right now, I'm enjoying it so far, and I still am looking forward to seeing what the game becomes in the future. Because I have full confidence that it's going to continue to be supported and fairly, and it's really good to talk about those kinds of things when they happen because, you know, when a studio gets it right, when they are passionate and when they make something really good that they're proud of and you enjoy playing and, you know, the feedback is going, it's just such a good thing and I love to see it. Take care.